The archivists had been thorough. That's what made their failure so spectacular. For 3 generations, the gray-skinned bureaucrats of the collective had ruled Earth with algorithmic precision. They'd erased the monuments, burned the books, and scrubbed every digital trace of humanity's pre-conquest existence. The children born under their rule learned collective standard, studied collective history, and were taught that humanity had always been this: subservient, forgettable, and small. But the archivists had made one critical miscalculation. They'd studied human biology, human agriculture, human compliance, but they'd never understood human spite. Dr. Sarah Chen discovered it by accident. She was 73, one of the last living humans who remembered the before times, and she'd spent 40 years teaching collective mathematics to hollow-eyed children in Sector 7. That morning, she'd dropped her stylus during class. When she bent to retrieve it, she saw something impossible scratched into the underside of little Marcus Webb's desk. A constellation, Orion, rendered in crude but unmistakable lines. Sarah's hand trembled as she straightened. Marcus, 9 years old with the regulation gray uniform and regulation shaved head, stared straight ahead like all the other children. But when their eyes met, something passed between them. A flicker, a spark. After class, she held him back. "Where did you learn that?" she whispered, showing him the marking. Marcus's face remained carefully blank, but his small hand reached into his pocket. He pulled out a scrap of fabric worn thin with handling. Embroidered on it in fading thread were dozens of constellations. "My grandmother gave it to me before she died," he said quietly. "She said her grandmother gave it to her. She said to remember the patterns because they're promises." "Promises?" "That we came from up there. That will go back." Sarah felt something crack open in her chest, something she'd kept sealed for decades. Hope, dangerous and wild. Over the following weeks, she began to notice them everywhere. The children who tilted their heads just so when lightning flashed, as if trying to calculate velocity. The teenagers who arranged their food in spiraling patterns that matched the Fibonacci sequence. The young woman in Sector 12 who'd been punished 17 times for drawing circles within circles within circles, wheels within wheels, like the diagrams of ancient orreries. The archivists had tried to erase humanity's past, but human beings were persistence incarnate. The parents who'd lived free had whispered to their children. Those children, now adults with children of their own, had found ways to pass it forward, not in books or files the archivist could burn, but in lullabies that counted in base 60 like ancient Babylonians, in hand-clapping games that taught binary code, in jump-rope rhymes that preserved the names of astronauts like prayers. They'd hidden humanity's legacy in the one place the archivists never thought to look: in play, in song, in the supposedly meaningless activities of childhood. Sarah began gathering them, carefully, slowly, speaking in whispers and meeting in the ruins of buildings the collective had deemed unimportant enough to leave standing. Marcus brought his friends. They brought their parents. Word spread through glances and gestures, through the quantum entanglement of the desperate. In a basement beneath what had once been the Natural History Museum, Sarah stood before 47 children and 32 adults. Someone had brought an old projector, salvaged and hidden for years. When Sarah powered it on, the ceiling exploded into stars. The youngest children gasped. They'd never seen the night sky. The collective kept the cities bright always, eliminating darkness, eliminating wonder. "This is what they took from you," Sarah said, her voice breaking. "This is what your great-grandparents saw every night. Those points of light? We went to them. We built ships that could cross the gulfs between stars. We sent probes to the edges of the solar system and received their whispers back. We stood on the moon and left footprints that will outlast any empire." A boy raised his hand, no more than 6 years old.
"Did we really?"
"Yes," Sarah said firmly. "And we will again." An older man stood, tears streaming down his weathered face. "I remember," he said hoarsely. "I was 12 when they came. I watched the rockets launch from my backyard." His voice grew stronger. "My father worked at NASA. Before they killed him, he told me that human beings are made of star stuff, that we're the universe trying to understand itself." "Poetry," a woman added, standing beside him. "I remember poetry." "Do not go gentle into that good night," another voice joined. "Physics, E equals mc squared. Music, Beethoven's Ninth. Engineering, the Golden Gate Bridge. Medicine, The polio vaccine. They spoke faster now, a dam breaking, each memory reinforcing the others. The archivists had tried to make humanity forget, but forgetting isn't in human nature. Humans remember. Humans pass it on. Humans encode their legacy in the very structure of how they teach their young to play. Over the next year, the gatherings grew. 500, 1,000, 10,000. In every sector, in every city, humans were remembering who they'd been. And more than that, they were planning who they'd become again. The children led the way. The ones who'd grown up never seeing stars but carrying their patterns in embroidered cloth and scratched metal. They'd inherited their ancestors' knowledge in fragments, but fragments were enough. They learned to piece together what had been broken. They found the old hardened servers buried in concrete bunkers. They decoded the technical manuals hidden in nursery rhymes, and they began to build. When the first human-made ship in 70 years launched from a hidden desert facility, it carried a crew of 12. The oldest was Marcus Webb, now 17. The youngest was 8. The archivists scrambled their fleet, but they were too late. The ship was crude, held together with spite and salvage parts, but it was fast, and it was headed for the nearest collective administrative station. Marcus's voice crackled over every frequency as they approached. "This is humanity. We're still here. We never stopped being here, and we're coming for our sky back." The ship didn't fire weapons, it didn't need to. It simply existed, impossible and undeniable. Across Earth and throughout the collective's holdings, humans saw it. The children remembered the stars, and the stars had remembered them right back. The revolution started that day, not with violence, but with memory, with the unstoppable human insistence that what we've done once, we can do again. The archivists had tried to erase humanity, but erasure requires absolute thoroughness, and humanity's truth was carved too deep, in playground games and whispered songs. In the stubborn way a child draws circles because circles mean orbits and orbits mean freedom, they'd tried to make humanity forget the stars. But the stars were in their blood, written in the spiral of their DNA, encoded in every generation's refusal to let wonder die. And in the end, forgetting was never really an option.